It was just another Tuesday afternoon at the Ellen DeGeneres Show studios in Burbank, but something was out to happen that would remind everyone why laughter is the most powerful medicine in the world. The familiar blue and white lights bathed the stage in warm glow, and Ellen's infectious energy had the audience dancing during the opening segment. Ellen DeGeneres stood center stage, her signature blonde hair catching the studio lights, wearing a crisp white button-down and light blue blazer. She moved with the music, encouraging the audience to join the daily dance party. The studio was alive with energy, children giggling, adults forgetting their worries, everyone united in simple movement. But in the third row, something caught Ellen's attention. A woman sat perfectly still while everyone danced. Rose Martinez, 78, wore a soft lavender cardigan and held a weathered envelope. Her silver hair was styled neatly, and her eyes held the wisdom of someone who had lived through both great joy and profound loss. Ellen noticed Rose during a particularly upbeat song. While the cameras focused on the dancing crowd, Ellen's trained eye, honed by years of reading audiences, picked up on the elderly woman's peaceful stillness. There was something magnetic about her presence, something that drew Ellen's attention, even in a room full of movement and sound. As the music wound down and the audience settled back into their seats, Ellen made a spontaneous decision that would change the course of the entire show. Instead of moving to her interview segment as planned, she walked directly into the audience, her wireless microphone picking up every step on the polished studio floor. "Hold on, everyone," Ellen said, her voice carrying that characteristic warmth that had endeared her to audiences for decades. "I want to meet someone." The studio fell into an expectant hush. This wasn't part of the script, but Ellen's spontaneous moments often became the most memorable parts of her show. The cameras swiveled to follow her as she made her way to the third row, stopping directly in front of Rose. "Hi there," Ellen said, kneeling down so she was at eye level with the elderly woman. "I'm Ellen." Rose's face lit up with genuine surprise and delight. "Oh my goodness, I know who you are. I'm Rose Martinez. I watch your show every single day." "Every single day?" Ellen asked, her eyebrows raising with interest. "That's dedication. And I noticed you weren't dancing with us just now. Are you okay?" Rose chuckled softly, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Oh, I was dancing, dear, just not with my feet." The audience around them leaned in, sensing that something special was unfolding. Ellen tilted her head, intrigued by Rose's response. "Dancing not with your feet?" Ellen repeated. "What do you mean?" Rose looked down at the envelope in her lap, her fingers tracing its edges with the careful touch of someone handling something precious. "May I show you something?" Ellen nodded, and the cameras zoomed in as Rose carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, the paper yellowed with age, the ink slightly faded, but the handwriting still clear and strong. Rose unfolded it with reverent care. "This is from my husband, Roberto," Rose explained, her voice growing softer. "He wrote it to me 50 years ago, just before he left us." The studio had become completely silent. Even the crew members stopped their work to listen. Ellen remained kneeling, giving Rose her complete attention. "He was in the hospital," Rose continued, "and he knew he wasn't coming home. But he wasn't sad about it. He was worried about me. He was worried I would stop laughing." Ellen felt her throat tighten. In all her years of hosting, she had learned to recognize moments when entertainment transformed into something more profound. This was one of those moments. "What did he write?" Ellen asked gently. Rose looked down at the letter, her voice steady despite the emotion in her words. "He wrote, 'My dearest Rose, I know you're scared about tomorrow, but I need you to promise me something. I need you to find someone who makes you laugh like I do. Not a husband. There could never be another me.'" She chuckled through tears that had begun to form. He was always so cocky, but he wrote, "Find someone who reminds you that joy is still possible. Find someone who can make you dance, even when the music stops." The silence in the studio was complete. Ellen felt tears pricking her own eyes as she watched this remarkable woman share her most treasured possession with a room full of strangers. "Rose," Ellen said softly, "did you find that person?" Rose looked up from the letter and smiled directly at Ellen. "I found you." The words hit Ellen like a gentle wave. She had heard many touching stories over the years, had comforted grieving guests and celebrated countless triumphs, but something about Rose's simple statement reached a place in her heart she didn't even know existed. "You found me?" Ellen repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every day for the past 8 years," Rose nodded. "Ever since my granddaughter convinced me to watch your show. Roberto was right. I found someone who makes me laugh like he did. Someone who reminds me that joy is still possible. And when you have everyone dance at the beginning of the show, I do dance, Ellen. I dance with the memory of him, and I dance with the happiness you bring me every single day." Ellen felt the tears flow freely now. She reached out and gently took Rose's hand. "Rose, may I ask you something?" "Of course, dear. Would you come up on stage with me? I think Roberto's letter deserves to be shared with everyone here today." Rose's eyes widened. "Oh, I couldn't possibly." "Please," Ellen said, standing and extending her hand. "I think your husband was a very wise man, and I think he would want you to dance with more than just memories today." After a moment's hesitation, Rose took Ellen's hand. The audience erupted in gentle applause as Ellen helped her navigate the steps up to the stage. Once there, Ellen walked Rose to the comfortable chairs typically reserved for celebrity guests. "Rose," Ellen said, now addressing both her and the studio audience, "I want everyone to hear what Roberto wrote to you. Would that be okay?" Rose nodded, settling into the chair with the letter still clutched in her hands. Ellen pulled up a chair beside her, creating an intimate space within the larger studio setting. "Roberto wrote this letter 50 years ago," Ellen explained to the audience. "He was saying goodbye to the love of his life. But instead of focusing on his sadness, he focused on her future happiness. Rose, would you read us the end of the letter?" Rose's voice grew stronger as she read, "My dearest Rose, don't mourn for me longer than you celebrate me. Find someone who makes you laugh like I do. Find someone who reminds you that joy is still possible. Find someone who can make you dance even when the music stops. And when you find that person, you dance for both of us. You live for both of us. You love for both of us. Until we meet again, keep dancing, my beautiful Rose. All my love, Roberto." The studio was filled with the sound of soft crying. Ellen reached over and squeezed Rose's hand. "Rose," Ellen said, her voice thick with emotion, "Roberto wasn't just writing you a letter. He was writing instructions for healing. He was telling you how to survive losing the person you love most in the world." Rose nodded. "He was always taking care of me, even at the end." Ellen stood up and walked to the front of the stage, addressing the cameras directly. "You know, we started today's show with a dance party, like we always do, but I think Rose has taught us something important about dancing. It's not just about moving your body to music. It's about moving your heart toward joy, even when that seems impossible." She turned back to Rose. "Roberto was right about one thing. Love comes in many forms. The love he had for you didn't end when he died. It transformed into something else. It became his gift to you, his permission for you to keep finding happiness." Ellen reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a small silver locket, one she wore every day but rarely talked about publicly. She opened it to reveal a tiny photo of her wife, Portia. "This was given to me by someone who taught me that love isn't about replacing what you've lost," Ellen said. "It's about being open to new forms of love when they appear. Roberto didn't want you to replace him. He wanted you to add to the love in your life. Rose wiped her eyes with a tissue that Ellen had handed her. You understand. I do understand, Ellen said, and I want to do something, if you're okay with it. What's that, dear? Ellen gestured to her production team. I want us to have another dance party, but this time, it's not just for fun. This time, we're dancing in honor of Roberto and in celebration of the love that brought you to our show every day for 8 years. The studio lights dimmed slightly, and then Ellen's favorite slow song began to play, What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. Ellen extended her hand to Rose. May I have this dance? Rose laughed through her tears. Oh, Ellen, I haven't danced with anyone since Roberto. Then it's time, Ellen said gently. He told you to dance, even when the music stops. Well, the music is playing now. Rose took Ellen's hand and stood up. Together, they began to sway gently to the music. It wasn't elaborate choreography, just two women, one young and one old, sharing a moment of pure human connection. As they danced, something magical happened. Members of the audience began to stand and sway along with them. Soon, the entire studio was moving to the gentle rhythm, not with the energetic enthusiasm of the opening dance party, but with something deeper and more meaningful. Ellen spoke softly as they danced, her words picked up by her wireless microphone. Rose, I want you to know something. You may have found someone who makes you laugh, but you've given me something too. You've reminded me why I do this show. It's not about the celebrities or the games or even the dancing. It's about moments like this. It's about connections that remind us we're not alone. When the song ended, Ellen and Rose remained in their gentle embrace. For a moment longer, the audience's applause was different this time. Not the excited cheering of entertainment, but the warm, sustained appreciation of people who had witnessed something genuine and beautiful. Ellen walked Rose back to her chair, but before she sat down, Rose reached into her purse and pulled out another envelope. Ellen, she said, I wrote something for you too. Ellen's eyes widened in surprise. You wrote me a letter? Last night, Rose said. I had a feeling I might get the chance to meet you today. Call it an old woman's intuition. Ellen took the envelope, her name written on the front in the same careful handwriting she'd seen on Roberto's letter. She looked at Rose questioningly. Open it, Rose encouraged. Ellen carefully opened the envelope and unfolded a single sheet of paper. She read silently, at first, her expression growing more emotional with each line. Finally, she looked up at Rose. Would it be okay if I read this out loud? Rose nodded. Ellen's voice was thick with emotion as she began to read. Dear Ellen, Roberto told me to find someone who makes me laugh like he did. I found you, but what he couldn't have known is that you would become more than just someone who makes me laugh. You became someone who makes me remember that kindness still exists in the world. Every day, you show your audience how to be better people. You show us how to care for each other, how to celebrate our differences, and how to find joy even in difficult times. Roberto was right about a lot of things, but he was wrong about one thing. There could be another him. There couldn't be another you. Thank you for keeping my heart dancing all these years. With love and gratitude, Rose. Ellen folded the letter carefully and looked out at her audience, many of whom were now crying openly. She walked to the front of the stage again. You know, she said, I started this show 19 years ago because I wanted to bring a little more kindness into the world. I wanted to create a place where people could come and just be happy for an hour. But what I've learned is that kindness is a circle. The more you give, the more you receive. Rose came here today thinking she was just going to be in the audience of a TV show. Instead, she gave all of us a gift. Ellen paused, looking directly into the main camera. If you're watching this at home and you've lost someone you love, I want you to listen to Roberto's words. Find someone who makes you laugh. Find someone who reminds you that joy is still possible. Find someone who can make you dance, even when the music stops. And when you find that person, don't be afraid to tell them what they mean to you. She turned back to Rose. Rose, I have one more thing I want to give you. Ellen reached into her other pocket and pulled out a small blue envelope with the Ellen DeGeneres Show logo on it. Inside this envelope, Ellen said, is a lifetime pass to our show. I want you to come back whenever you want. I want you to bring friends. I want you to keep dancing with us for as long as we're on the air. Rose's hands flew to her heart. Oh, Ellen, that's too much. No, Ellen said firmly. It's not enough. You've been part of our family for 8 years. It's time we made it official. The show wrapped up differently that day. Instead of the usual high-energy closing, Ellen and Rose sat together on stage, talking quietly while the credits rolled. The audience didn't rush to leave. They lingered, as if reluctant to break the spell of what they had just experienced. Later, after the cameras stopped rolling and the audience had finally departed, Ellen and Rose continued their conversation backstage. Rose showed Ellen more photos of Roberto, and Ellen shared stories about her own journey to finding love later in life. You know, Ellen said as they sat in her dressing room, Roberto was a very wise man, but I think he would be amazed to see how his words have rippled out into the world today. Rose smiled. He always said that love was like a stone thrown into a pond. The ripples just keep going and going. Well, Ellen said, today, those ripples reached millions of people. 3 months later, the episode aired, and it became one of the most watched and most shared episodes in the show's history. The segment with Rose was viewed over 50 million times online, and the show received thousands of letters from viewers sharing their own stories of loss and healing. Rose became a regular presence at the show, attending tapings every few weeks, and always bringing along friends from her senior center. Ellen kept her promise about the lifetime pass, and Rose kept her promise to Roberto about finding joy. The letter that Roberto wrote 50 years ago had found its way to exactly where it needed to be, not just to his wife, but to a studio full of people who needed to be reminded that love transforms but never truly ends, and that sometimes the most profound dancing happens not with our feet, but with our hearts. Ellen kept Rose's letter in her dressing room, where she would read it before each show as a reminder of why she did what she did. And Rose kept Roberto's letter with her always, along with a new tradition. Every day before watching Ellen's show, she would whisper to Roberto's photo, "We're dancing today, my love. We're still dancing."